Hello my fellow spuds and welcome to a hints and tips video on Project Zomboid. Today I'm going to be going through some more advanced hints and tips that you may not know about that should hopefully improve your game knowledge and experience. So first up, it's the notch plank. So if you've ever had a playthrough where you take the smoker trait, you are completely reliant on lighters and matches as well as cigarettes. However, there are some playthroughs where you might struggle to find lighters and matches depending on the rarity settings that you've got in the game. This can sometimes be a juggle between having to light fires potentially after the electricity goes out, or being able to light your cigarette, and I know I've had to struggle with this in the past. However, I've recently learned you can actually light fires using a notch plank and sturdy stick. A notch plank is really easy to make. You can just make it using logs and plank and any kind of knife, and a sturdy stick all you need to use is a plank and a saw. And once you have this, it acts like a hand drill in real life. Just using these on a campfire, you can use it on an antique stove, you can use it on a barbecue. It works on any of those. The only caveat with it is it uses endurance. So if you have extremely high exertion, your character won't be able to light the fire. Apart from that, it's got a fairly high chance of lighting a fire straight off. It might take 1 or 2 tries. There is a chance that the sturdy stick could break. However, it is basically free, and it means you can light the fire without having to use up your precious matches or lighter. So especially if you're doing a survival playthrough where you're staying in the woods and not venturing out, it's an extremely efficient way to light your fires going forward, whilst also being able to hoard onto your lighters and matches for other things. Sticking with those of you who like to live out in the woods, we're going to be talking about foraging. So foraging had a massive update in build 41, and I know a lot of people struggle with it, so I thought I'd go into a bit more detail about it. So the new mechanic is you press the end key or you enable the foraging system, and you have a little search radius around you where if you just walk around, you have a chance to find items and discover them on the floor, and then you can pick them up as you go along. However, there's a couple of things that people don't realize when it comes to this that could drastically improve your chance of finding items. So for example, weather effect has a massive influence on your foraging. If it is dark, you lose a huge percentage of chance of finding items because of the darkness effect. Same if it's raining or if it's bad weather, thundery, that sort of thing, or foggy, you've got a lot less chance of finding items. So it's best to go on a clear day during summer. On top of this, there's a few different ways you can increase your chance of finding stuff. For example, if you sneak, you have a plus 10% multiplier in finding items. And if you aim and strafe while walking around, you've got a plus 33% chance of finding extra items. So it's really important to do this rather than just walking around. It drastically reduces your movement speed. However, it's a much higher chance of finding stuff. Something I didn't realize is actually your traits and level in certain things can actually affect your foraging abilities as well as certain things you can actually find. So for example, if you have the herbalist trait or read the herbalist magazine, you gain the ability to see if a berry or mushroom is poisonous or not. However, you can also gain this ability if you get to level 7 in cooking automatically. So if you are struggling to find that, don't worry, just get your cooking up to level 7. That's a hard task, but if you do manage to do that without finding the herbalist magazine, it is possible to still see whether something is poisonous or not. On top of this, certain occupations have a much better chance of finding things than others. For example, if you're a lumberjack, your search radius improves by 1.25, and you ignore the weather by 33%. This is in comparison to a burglar where you have no radius increase and you only ignore 5% weather. Or if you're a park ranger, which is technically the best for foraging, you have a plus 2 radius, a 33% chance of ignoring the weather, as well as a 15% ignore darkness. So your occupation for foraging does affect a lot of this. On top of that, certain occupations are more likely to find different things. For example, if you're a burger flipper, you're 5% more likely to find animals or berries in the wild, 15% more likely to find mushrooms in the wild, and 30% more likely to find junk food in the wild. You can compare this to something like a farmer, where you are 50% more likely to find crops, 10% more likely to find fruit, and 10% more likely to find veg. You also have a slight chance of 5% to find herbs, junk food, and wild plants. Park ranger, which is, as I said before, the best for foraging, you have a plus 75% chance of finding wild herbs, 50% plus chance of finding wild plants. You also have an increased chance of finding forest rarities, junk, berries, and mushrooms. So your occupation does matter a huge amount when it comes to foraging. Traits also have a massive impact on this. For example, if you take the lucky trait, you get a plus 1 radius modifier. If you have cat's eyes, you ignore the darkness more. If you have outdoorsman, you ignore the weather. So these different traits affect it significantly. Same as the negative traits, if you are unlucky, you have a minus radius modifier. If you're agoraphobic, you have a minus modifier, same as short-sighted. So if you want to do a foraging character, you need to pick your traits well. If you want to go into more detail with this, I suggest going to the Project Zomboid wiki, where it's got all this information as well as a lot more. Up next, we're going to be talking about cars. We often see that there's a certain aspect of cars that is completely overlooked, and that is the engine quality, which is, in my opinion anyway, the most important quality a car can possibly have. If you look under the hood and you look at the engine, you have the engine condition. However, in the top right, you can also see that there's something called engine quality. This is significantly more important than engine condition, because engine quality never deteriorates no matter how many crashes you get into or how damaged the car gets. It will always stay at that particular figure. Now, the quality affects how likely it is that your car will start, and this ties in also with the car battery condition itself. However, technically, according to the coding, if you have a car that is 100% engine quality, the car should never fail when trying to start. In practice, this is around 99% of the time because other factors do influence it. But if you find a car with engine quality of 100, you should look to take it and fix it up. Pretty much every other part of a car can be fixed in one way, shape, or form. However, engine quality can never change. So if you find a car which has amazing condition, basically every part, but the engine is only 10 quality, it's probably not worth it. It would be more worth it to strip that car for parts and reinstall them into a car that has a much higher engine quality. Now, cars with high quality engines are fairly rare. However, you're more likely to find them in emergency vehicles that crashed at the side of the road, in wrecks and things. In my experience, police cars, ambulances that are in wrecks are much more likely to have really high engine quality, usually in the high 90s or up to 100. So keep your eyes peeled for those. I would recommend hauling them back to the base, fixing them up as much as possible, and you have one of the best cars you can ever get in the game. Because vehicles with high quality engines are much likely to start first time round, and can mean the difference between life and death if you have to escape a bad situation. Sticking with cars now, you may know that you can fire your gun from a window while you're driving. If you just wind down the window, you can hold right click and you can just shoot. However, did you know that you can also swing your melee weapon out the window while driving? Not only that, but from doing it this way, you use less endurance per swing, and also each of your swings tends to be a little bit faster animation-wise than it would be if you're on foot. This gives you a huge advantage in certain situations, such as if you're trying to take on big hordes and you're trying to be safe, or if you're trying to speed level maintenance and you just want to smack your weapon into a door. This makes it that little bit faster than if you were doing it on foot. Although it can be a bit risky, I highly recommend you try this because it can help you take on those big hordes while remaining in your vehicle fairly safe. Just make sure that you have a high quality car before you do this, because you don't want your car breaking down when you're passing a horde. Finally, I'm going to talk about one of the most important items in the game, which is completely overlooked 99% of the time, and that is the beer can. Well, how is the beer can so amazing? Well, for one, it reduces your pain, the same as painkillers. It allows you to sleep regardless of pain or panic, kind of like what sleeping pills do. It reduces your panic, the same as beta blockers, and it reduces your unhappiness, the same as antidepressants. Basically, a beer can is the same as painkillers, beta blockers, antidepressants, and sleeping pills all wrapped up into one. Best of all, it only weighs 0.3, which means that actually it weighs significantly less than if you had all of those medicines on you. On top of this, you can get all the benefits from it by only drinking a tiny amount of beer. If you take a sip, basically drink a quarter and click escape before you finish the animation, you'll drink a fraction of that quarter. And you should still then get the effects of reduced pain, reduced panic, and reduced unhappiness. What's good about doing these sips is that the amount of fatigue you get is minimal. So actually you get the effects of the reduced pain, the reduced panic, and the reducing unhappiness without so much of the making you tired. So remember that next time that you go on your little excursion to always bring a can of beer, because beer is literally the best medicine. That's it. That's my 5 hints and tips of Project Zomboid that you may not know about. So if you've liked what we've seen, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye-bye.